So you ready to jump right in?
Yes, let's go.
Let's
this
do
is
it.
going to be exciting.
I sometimes ask people this question when I meet them, like out in the bar or something, just
Sure.
for fun. What's something you could tell me that no one else knows about you?
Ooh.
And welcome, coming on down. Thank you,
wow.
man.
You have
Wow.
a voiceover.
That's yes.
It's nice.
Welcome to
production.
It's a full production. This is Big Talk with Christian Henley, and today I'm with my esteemed guest, the one and only
Adolphus Willis.
Adolphus Willis. Jesus.
I'm thinking which one to pick. I'm thinking, how do I really want to go down the path, or do I want to just jump through the hole?
What do you mean, go down a path or jump through a hole?
Because it's levels to it,
Okay.
so I don't know which one to share.
Okay. Share
That
what
is such a good question.
Look, man.
I would say the thing that no one really knows about me, I would say that I was a victim of child molestation.
Wow. So, okay, thank you, first of all. Thank you.
Yes.
Safe space here between
No.
you and I. Yeah.
I said I was going to do it, and I'm gonna do it freely.
First of all, can I get some
Yeah.
here? I really appreciate you being vulnerable with me. And because you've done that, and this is not a Trump at all, but because you've done that, and this is the space that we're in, me as well. I've never shared that with you. Me as well.
Right.
So there's that. But
So now you get the control, the sense of wanting to be perfect.
yeah. You mean with me?
No, just me as a person. Yeah.
And so how do you think so are you saying that experience is related to you wanting to be perfect?
I mean, I use the word perfect loosely, but a strive towards perfection, I think, is a more appropriate way of explaining it.
And how does one relate to the other? What does striving to be perfect, how does that kind of undo that hurt or that trauma?
Well, I don't think it does. I think
Okay.
it's a coping mechanism.
It's a coping
I think it's a coping mechanism.
How does it cope?
Excuse me. I think it copes because if I am on the pursuit of goals, if I am constantly dealing with the next thing, it doesn't come up, right?
Yeah.
So I think
I see.
it doesn't come up.
It's
It's a coping mechanism.
I see
right?
what you're saying.
And so it's just something I wouldn't say a learned defense mechanism, but a learned skill. And back when I was saying 27, the car accident, I actually went to therapy. I shared it with my mother for the first time at 27.
Wow.
Like 27 was a big year for me.
Wow.
For 25 years, 24 years, I never spoke on it. Like never to anyone.
Jesus.
No, I take it back. I was dating someone at 25, so that was the one I told her about it.
Okay.
Because she was asking different questions. She can understand different things, and I explained it to her. But outside of that person, I had never shared this with anyone for over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was it something that was on your mind, or did you kind of stuff it so far that you didn't even think about it?
I would say I did so many things and tried to go to the next goal, that I didn't give myself the space to think about it. But in the interesting thing about it is when I had the car accident, I was out of work for 6 weeks. And so I had no work. I couldn't go anywhere because I was injured.
Wow.
And so my mind went back to all those traumas, right? And so that's when I dealt with a lot of things, I would say, just of who I am, asking that question that you asked earlier.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm always filling my time with things.
With distraction.
I want to say distraction. They're hobbies. They're things that make me a better person. But
yeah.
I'm always doing something.
You're always doing something.
I don't never just sit still.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you sit still, you have to.
It's uncomfortable to sit still.
Yes, it's very uncomfortable
to
the uncomfortability of being still.
Wow. You know what? It's so funny. Two things I'm thinking of right now. One, there's like this thing called the 27 Club. So like a lot of the 27 Club.
Oh yes, a lot of artists and stuff die or kill themselves at 27. Yes.
And there's like this biology. They're like thing that like basically your brain redoes something at the age of 27. So 27 is a very pivotal year for people. One, two, I experienced a depression, which I really feel like from like pretty much probably a lot of my life, but it culminated at the age of 27 and reached its height for myself. And then three, I met this woman when I was in graduating from high school who told me that if I didn't start paying attention, she was like, God is going to tackle you.
Oh, yes. Oprah calls them the ripples of the world.
The ripples of the
So
world.
if you throw something like a rock in the water, that it'll be ripples, and sometimes that's the way that God or whoever you call your God to be sends you messages, and you're supposed to be aware of those messages.
Okay.
And if you're not aware of those small little ripples or little things that are happening in your surroundings, then God will send you a boulder to knock you out.
Boom.
So you have to pay attention to stuff.
Boom.
So I look like really doing self-reflection. That car accident caused me to deal with my shit. But 27 was a beautiful year because I became more of myself. I embraced my inner child, right?
Right.
And so I think I talk with a lot of my friends all the time about the vulnerabilities of Black men and how the Black men actually express emotion, right? And I think that I wouldn't say toxic masculinity, but masculinity in terms of from the Black community sometimes does not give Black boys the space and grace to do that, right? But at 27, I had no option but to deal with my shit because it was either deal with the shit or you don't have anything to deal with, right? So it was a very, very hard year for me, but it was therapeutic.
It was the best.
It was the best year. It was the worst and best year of my life.
It's really when you came alive.
Yes.
It's really when you started to live.
Yes, it is when I started to live. I started to be more of myself. I gave myself the space and grace to be who I am. I started traveling much, much more at 27. For my 30th birthday, I did like a 3.5-week tour across Europe. So I just explored more.
You were like I said, like it's almost a night and day for me, night and day difference from prior to 27 versus post 27. And one of those differences is that when we were in college,
Yes.
you were very, we were friends, but you were very guarded about your romantic interest.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I particularly, speaking for myself, I had my speculations, but it was something that never got touched and it never got spoken about, and it just really felt like there was no way that I could communicate with you about, certain things. And talking about like the relationships that, or the emotional space that Black men are afforded.
Yes.
Wanting to be your friend and wanting to be able to be vulnerable with you didn't feel like a true possibility. And however, now it feels like there's a difference. And you okay?
That's so interesting for you to say that, though.
Yeah.
That
and that could have been me.
Yeah, I think that could have been you because let me tell you a thing. I tell people all this. Tell people this all the time. I have always been open and honest, and I've never lied. That's one of my values. I'm never gonna lie. So if anyone would ever come to me and ask me questions, I would shoot them straight. Now, would I evade sometimes? Perhaps, but I've always been a straight shooter. Like I don't.
Well, those two things sound slightly different.
No. I think it's the way you answer a question, and I think it depends on who you are, why you ask me the question. Because one of the things that I've always been intrigued by is people's infatuation about other people's business, and I always have the mantra of I mind the business that pays me, and so I'm always curious about why people are so concerned about other people's business. That could be as it relates to romantic interest, as it relates to financial interest, as it relates to career interest.
That's real.
I never really understood that, particularly people who should be focusing on their business.
I get that completely.
Right.
I get that
and
completely.
So, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Being in my household, it was always what happens in this house stays in this house. Ain't nobody, business, what's going on. And so that's the value that was instilled in me at such a young age. So it wasn't that I was being invaded. It was just, I'm just a private person.
Those
period.
were the rules.
Those were the rules that I grew up with. And so now being in LA, I'm like, well, fuck it. I'm seeing something different, right? So you don't know what you can be with if you don't see it.
So we're talking around the subject, and I was wondering, would it be possible that we just laid it all out?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
What is the question?
So I'll phrase it that prior to, I'm going to say age 27, but this is something very recently that you and I had an experience.
Yeah, we had a conversation.
That I didn't know that you are bisexual.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't, in college, that was not something that was discussed. And obviously,
Well,
that's
I mean,
okay.
that I wouldn't say that I was actively bisexual in college. So that's what I was saying.
Okay.
I didn't give myself that space to even pursue that,
go
to
down
even
that
go
route.
down that
Okay,
route, right? So if
okay.
you go back to the conservative Christian
Okay.
values, like
Okay.
I literally used to pray those things
Okay.
away, like those
Yeah.
thoughts, but I
Wow.
never acted on it or never even thought about it because once again, I was pursuing goals. I filled my time.
You
with
distracted yourself with
coping.
success.
Yes, I distracted
Wow.
myself with success, so I didn't even think about it. But once again, when 27 happened, I had no distractions, literally no distractions. Even reading books, I really couldn't do because I was on pain meds, right? And so I couldn't focus enough outside. I'm gonna tell you, I couldn't focus enough to distract myself of not thinking about the shit that I need to think about.
Wow.
And so 27 was such a revelatory year for me. But like I say, if you would have the conversation back then, I would have had an honest conversation because I really wasn't. You know, I think people used to speculate all the time. But I truly, really wasn't.
Right.
Like I really wasn't.
Right. And listen, I honestly, I feel like you have no reason to lie to me because
you're
because
sharing. I'm sharing. I'm being real with you. Like I had never dated anyone. I had never did anything.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Man, listen.
I think I can literally, even today, I think I can count at 25, 26, how many people I had slept with on one hand because that's just something that I value, like in terms of your inner self, in terms of sharing yourself with someone, and being intentional when you're taking it there. But like I say, LA was a game changer for me. And that accident, while it was very, I wouldn't say tragic, but it was hard for me to deal with and get back up. I had to go to therapy for like 2 months. I had to make sure I don't get addicted to pain pills because they prescribed me so much, right? And then I got into therapy. So I think, 27. I tell anybody, 27 was my year. And I think at that point where I became more open to my sense of self and was like 5 by 5, fuck the bullshit, I started to take off in my career because now I know my sense of value. I know my brand. I know how to articulate my brand. I know what I bring to the table, and everything else is just noise because I can go anywhere and bring those same things to any other company.
When you find the freedom to love yourself completely, oh my God, the world
it opens up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The world
opens up. And you
to
know when things aren't flowing right.
Yeah.
Right. So I look at life as a flow state, right? So if you're going upstream or downstream, depending on your path in life, if you're not flowing correctly, those are the ripples that I would say. And you have to be cognizant of that and take a pause. You have to be still, right? Mm-hmm. And so I give myself the space and grace to be still now. And then if I don't like something that's going on, I pivot or I make a plan to pivot. So that's when I pull on those skills of being a planner, perfectionist, because I know how to empower change in my own life.
So let me ask you a question. So when you're praying to God to pray parts of you away, you don't develop any resentment. You don't say, man, maybe this is not the religion for me, given that I have to, because you said you were praying it away, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, that is such an interesting question as well. I think I talked to my best friend, Asia, about this, Asia Mordro,
Joe's wife.
Yeah, Joe's wife. Yeah, about this many years ago. I think growing up or getting older and trying to pray the thoughts away, not acting on it, but literally feeling a certain thing but not acting on it. When I got 19 and 20, 21, 22, as I grew on age and kind of began to think more for myself, I began to question. I not want to say question God, but question the construct of religion. Because I think, I wouldn't say far too often, but sometimes what we do in the Christian community is we pick parts of the Bible that we want to live our lives to, and we don't, we don't live the totality of it, right? And then I think certain things can be misconstrued, right? And I also think, a lot of
that was misconstrued for the non-country folk out there. That's misconstrued.
Misconstrued,
right?
And I think a lot of people know that slavery, they use the Bible to justify slavery as well. So I'm not trying to make them on the same, wavelength, but what I am saying is that I began to question my faith. I really did. In my early 20s, seriously, in early 20s, going into mid 20s, at 27 and starting to think about, am I on a purpose-driven life? and having to sit still and think with those thoughts. So yeah, and I think that's also a rising debate in the Christian church now in terms of embracing all of us, right? But I am back in terms of saying that I do believe that God loves me, right?
That's beautiful.
I really do believe that, but I struggled for a while in terms of really embracing my full self, right? And if you can imagine someone who's grown up in the Christian church, someone whose stepfather's a pastor, whose mother's a first lady, whose uncle's a pastor, whose cousin's over, districts of Georgia, who's no longer with us. But I mean, I was Southern Baptist.
You were deep in the conservative.
Southern Baptist. Yeah, Southern Baptist. I can literally remember sermons that my stepfather would preach around Adam and Steve back in I think this was when the debate was going on. What's that, Bush and Gore in 2000? I think it was Bush and Gore in the culture wars of conservatism. And just sitting in church and being like, damn, like, am I going to hell for these thoughts, right? And then you juxtapose that with knowing the trauma that I had as a child and thinking about, damn, was God supposed to save me? Was someone else supposed to save me? Should I be a perfectionist? Should I be seen more so someone can actually see what's happening? Then I need to put a bigger spotlight on my sense of self to enable me for someone to see this occurring. So I think it all is interconnected, if you will.
And speaking to the interconnectedness of it all, do you think that the experience that you had being molested, do you think that is anything to do with your sexuality?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I would say I don't know. This is something that I have asked myself that as well, right? I don't know. I think I've read literature about it that says it doesn't. I think a lot of people tend to use that and say a lot of people who are different, it's because of that happened to them. And I don't know. I think a lot of people are indeed born a certain way, right? And just their lives organically unfolds in a way that they're different, right? But for this question in particular, I have struggled with that answer for 30-something years.
Wow.
In terms of trying to figure out, right? I prayed about it. But what I will say is I do, at this point in my life, embrace the full totality of my sense of self. And I can't worry about going back into a crystal ball and changing things that would happen to me. I think one of the things my therapist shared with me 7 years ago when I first started therapy, and I'm not in it now. I got to find a good therapist out here in L.A. But she shared with me that not just everything happens for a reason, but that my person that I am as a professional, that I always use that. I use that as a coping mechanism for success, right? So the evasiveness, the strive for perfectionist, the being able to read someone emotionally, being able to shut down my emotions, being able to play chess with life, if you will, it's because that was a learned skill I had to learn at a very early age. And so now I can push and pull on that at a drop of a dime without question, right? And so I wouldn't wish that upon anyone, but I'm using that lived experience in terms of to do what I need to do, right? I look at it through a lens of saying not too many things in life can break me, because at my most vulnerable state, I was broken.
Wow.
I'm really at a sense of peace in my life. I've dealt with it. I've forgiven that person. I've had the conversation with my mom. I've had the conversation.
You forgave that?
No, not personally, but I mean in my life,
within yourself.
Within myself,
Yeah.
I forgave that person. Because he probably was damaged.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to him in his life, and it was someone so close to me. Wow. It didn't happen once; it happened over years.
Wow.
But I think that at this space in my life, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm happy. I'm dealing with shit in terms of work and figuring out what's the next step. But in terms of personal life and being at a sense of peace, 27 brought me peace.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Something about the age of 27 that has really been transformative for a lot of people.
What's your year? What's your transformer in the year?
I'm gonna say 27 years.
Really?
Old. Yeah, 27. 20. Like I was like, to be honest, I was close to suicidal at age 27. And when I say close to suicidal, I remember waking up one morning, looking outside, like looking out the apartment that I was in and being like, damn, I think I'm going to kill myself in this basement. Then saying, because of that, I have to get out of this house. And then walking outside walking outside and it looking like when I looked outside, it was orange. Everything was orange. And I was like, oh shit, this looks like the day I'm going to kill myself. It looks like the day I'm going to kill myself.
Wow.
And so like,
but I think if we're open and honest, I think everyone has had that type of suicidal ideation.
I agree.
But they won't be open and honest and acknowledge it.
I agree. When did you know that you might be curious about being with men?
I would say probably 16. If I was to give an age to it, I would say 16 is when I was like, oh, okay, wow. I may be attracted to a guy, but I'm dating this girl, right?
Right.
What's wrong with me? And then being in the environment of, Adam and Steve is going to hell at church, and me losing my stepfather, my mom marrying a pastor, and just being in that entire environment, being like, okay, then you're questioning your sense of self, right? What is wrong with me? And then you decide, okay, I'm not even going to lean into that. I'm not going to explore that part of me because my people who I admire are telling me that's wrong. That I haven't shared with them anything, but I'm thinking these things as a child, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm not allowing myself the space and grace to act on it.
Can I ask you a very surface level question
Sure.
that's like steeped in some depth?
Sure.
It's a silly question, whatever, but for me, I know what I find attractive about a woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is completely surface level, but go.
It was very surface, and I'm just curious. I want to know. I'm not bisexual, but one woman actually, back in the day, I was attracted very deeply, very much so, to this chick, and she was bisexual, and she had a girlfriend, and her girlfriend said to me what was the best definition of a bisexual person I ever got with, to the point in which I was like, oh, I actually understand this, and I can vibe with this. She was like, you know what? I'm bisexual because I'm attracted to souls, not like...
Damn.
She's like, I'm attracted to people's souls.
Now that is deep.
And I was like, you know what? I can get that.
Yeah, because I would say energy.
Energy, exactly.
Yeah. Souls, that's a lot.
She's like, I'm attracted to people's souls. It doesn't matter what their exterior is.
Right.
It
doesn't matter what their shell is.
It doesn't matter what the shell is.
Yeah.
What's your spirit? What's your soul? Two things. One thing I'm just going to say. Whenever, like... When I think about people who are bisexual, I kind of get somewhat envious because I'm like...
We're greedy.
Huh?
Because people say we're greedy? Yeah.
No, I wouldn't think that you're greedy. But I do think that, like, more of the world is available to you as far as, like, attraction. Like,
yeah. But this is also a confusion thing as well, right?
Confusion?
I think it's confusion in the sense of you can look at it through different lenses. Some people just date who they want to date. Some people just focus on one particular sex at one time.
Okay.
Some people, if you're dating, aren't comfortable with you being open and honest and, saying you're bisexual. So it's a full gamut in terms of, if you are bisexual, living your life in that dating space.
So at this point, you've already dated both men?
Yeah.
Is there a difference between, like, what it's like to date a man versus what it's like to date a woman?
Depending on the man and depending on the female, yeah.
So it's just different people, but not necessarily. Like, you haven't noticed, like, group differences.
No,
like,
it is a group difference.
Yeah.
Because I think two guys.
Can you explain someone, like, what are the differences between, like, what it's like to date a man versus what it's like to date a woman? Some of the general.
Wow, this. I didn't expect this to go here, but okay. I would say dating a female. Typically, I would say, well, from my experience, you're the guy's always seen as the alpha, right?
Okay.
And so that means you're going to take the lead.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't say the female's typically going to be submissive, but they're going to allow you that space to take the lead and to be the alpha, if you will.
Right.
Whereas a guy, you have typically, depending on what type of guys you're interacting with, you may have two alphas, two people are used to leading, and then you also have depending on who you're talking to, they may not know how to express themselves emotionally. And so the only time they express themselves is when they get pissed off. Whereas females, they are emotionally in tune with their sense of self, so they can communicate clearly their emotions.
Is this, thank you for that. Is this a real thing where you got, like, femmes and butches, I guess? Like, is that a real thing?
Well, unclear. I will tell you that I'm not how do I phrase this the right way? I'm me, and I'm
Yeah.
very different. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not.
And do you change relationship to
No,
relationship?
no. I wanted at 27. I'm
Yeah.
me. I'm fully
Yeah.
me. I
Yeah.
walk in my truth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm the same way throughout. If I'm talking to a female, if I'm talking to a male,
You're you.
I'm Adolphus
Okay,
Willis the
okay.
second, through and through.
Do you find that you get along better, or like that you?
Oh, no, this is
Yeah,
going.
yeah. Like,
with
do you-
females more than males.
Yeah, like, do you work better in a relationship with men versus women, or is it just depending on the person?
Well, I'll tell you that I was raised by females.
Okay.
Like, I have 4 sisters, my mom,
Yeah.
I have a lot of aunts.
So does that make you a stronger boyfriend to a woman, or does that make you a stronger?
Well, no, that makes me a stronger person emotionally because I
Yeah.
know I'm in tune with my emotions and I have this space and I know how to articulate and
Yeah.
communicate my emotions. I have a high emotional intelligence.
Right.
Right. And so I will say that does lend into relationships with a female easier because I can understand where she's coming
Got
from.
it.
Whereas a guy typically does
There's
not
just-
know how to
yeah.
communicate emotionally, is not expressive in terms of what
Okay.
they want, right? And I'm a Cancer, so Cancers tend to be more of like a homebody, more of an introverted person, and I struggle on that end, right?
Okay.
It's very different, but I don't change my sense of self at all. No.
Okay. All right. So we're done with that. Thank you
Okay.
very much for
Yeah.
that. Did you have? How was this conversation with your mother when you came out to her?
Well, I had an open conversation with her. I was in the space and place to show my true self. It was a hard conversation. I think we actually laugh about it now.
Really? And this was after 27, I think.
No, this was in the year 27. So I had a car accident in, March of 2014. Yeah, March of 2014.
When you were 27 years old.
When I was 27 years old.
And then that same year,
And
you
so
had this conversation.
Christmas, I went home.
Okay.
I had, she had just came out for her 50th. I think it was like a 48th. I think it was her 50th. I can't remember. She came out for her birthday in February. 2 weeks afterwards, I had a crazy car accident. I was out of work, and I had to recover out here. She was gonna come, but I was like, no, I'm fine. And then in the holidays around Christmas, I think it was Christmas, I went back home, and this is, of course, I had started going to therapy in the summertime after dealing with stuff, and I had a conversation with her. And I told her, I said, we're going to have a hard conversation.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm very,
Wow.
my mom's my best friend. And so I told her, we were driving to the grocery store. I had picked her up from work. And I said, Mom, I need to talk to you about something. We need to have a hard conversation. And she said, what? And I literally was stuck. I couldn't spit it out. And she was like, spit it out. So what, spit it out. And so I told her. And
Wait. I told her. What did you say?
I told her I was bisexual. I told her that
You just said, hey, Mom, I just want to let you know, I had a conversation. I'm bisexual.
Yep. Just rip the Band-Aid off.
Okay, and what did she say?
I don't think I can speak those words on the podcast.
You can. We can fuck shit, bitch. We can say everything.
No.
Although nobody's a bitch, but.
No. But she had some words for me, and I was pulling up at the grocery store, and she got out, and she started crying, and she slammed the door. And then she went to the grocery store, and she came back in the car, and then she went off again. And then she told me, she said, you know what? I just need some time to process it. She said, but I'm so glad that you told me this at this age, because if you were 16 or 17, I would have beat your ass. Yeah.
How'd that make you feel?
Well, I mean, I know my mom.
So you knew that would have been the case?
I knew, yeah. I knew.
And did you feel supported by her, though?
Yeah, I did, because I think that is something that is in our family that I wouldn't say is looked down upon, but you have to go back into the Southern Baptist, the conservative Christian values, and I think we've moved beyond it now. But keep in mind, when I shared this with her, I didn't share it with the child molestation, all of that.
Does she know that now?
Yeah. So later, she couldn't. Like, I was home for 2 weeks, so the next day she came back and she said, you know what? That was inappropriate for me to respond that way. Help me understand how my child is the way that he is. Help me understand.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it just took her one day to kind of gather her thoughts. I think it caught off guard. She told me that she always felt like I was a different child, that I was an overachiever, that I just was different, and she could never, put her finger on. She said she had her assumptions, but I had girlfriends. Like
you had a girlfriend.
yeah, I had a girlfriend.
Yeah.
I had never had brought a guy home and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, this is my boyfriend." So she just was like, maybe he's just different. Maybe he's metrosexual. I think that was the word at the time. But then we had the conversation, and I shared with her everything, and then she took it upon herself. Was like, "Well, dang, did I miss something?" Right?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you actually like both, or do you say bisexual as a buffer?
No, I would be honest
You'd
with
be
you.
honest.
I would be
Yeah,
honest.
I get that.
Once
I
again,
get
at
that.
27,
I get that.
I'm very honest.
I get that.
I know my sense of self.
So you do like women?
Yeah.
Okay. So I actually did want to talk about this. I believe that sometimes the curiosity that straight men have about the sexuality of their
Other people,
but like their friends who are not straight, is not because we're looking to always judge or be like, "Ooh, you this, you that." It's more so because like it's just a difference, right? And so it's like a unique thing. It's for me at least. It's just a unique thing. It's a fact. It's kind of interesting because it's like it's different.
I will tell you, I understand that, but my experience in terms of what I've seen and heard has been from more of a toxic masculinity lens, and I also push back a little bit slightly in terms of the curiosity piece. Like, are people who are not the norm, are they the shiny objects? Like, are they,
It's anything that's different, and so this is actually a subject that I think it should be discussed on a public platform,
right?
Because it's like you're different, like, and when I say different, not from the norm, but from me.
And then I also believe that sexuality is on a
spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And so you're on a different space on the spectrum that I'm on.
Yeah.
And so just because you're on a different part of the spectrum than I'm on, I'm just curious because I can only know about that part from someone who's at that part. I can't.
See that point. Yeah.
So I have to be.
But I don't know. But I don't think people who are not, if you using your words, like you didn't say norm, you say are different. I don't worry about or question. Oh, this person's straight. Oh, I wonder why they're just straight. I just allow people the space and grace to be them.
Okay.
But I always feel like people who are, quote unquote, your words, different, who are not different, always are worrying about someone else's what they're doing. And I don't get that part. I've never understood that.
Okay, I'll explain.
Yeah.
From my point of view, just to clarify, when I say different, I'm saying different from me.
Okay.
Not different from.
Yeah, no, I know.
Not a general difference.
I wanted to quote you.
Yeah, I got you.
Your terminology.
I got you. But I meant different from me.
I know.
Okay. And you don't understand the curiosity that we have for people who are different from us.
I don't know.
Okay. Well.
Help me. Explain it to me like a third grader.
Okay. Sure. I like that question. All your life, you are, things are one way.
Okay.
Daddy likes mommy. Mommy loves daddy.
Okay.
Mommy and daddy kiss each other.
Yep.
And then one day, you see daddy kissing another man, or you see a man kissing another man. Your whole life, though, you've only seen man kissing woman, but then one day you see man kissing another man. Isn't that then there's a curiosity. There's like, oh, well, how come? Because it's one, not because of what it is. Before you can judge it or qualify it, it's just that it is an outlier to the pattern. So the pattern is male kiss female. You see that every day. And then on one of the 365 days a year, you happen to see male kiss male. Because it is already unique to your experience, you're curious about it.
I understand. I understand now. Yeah.
Okay. That's it. And for me, I think that a lot of when like we hear about people who come out, or we hear like
the celebrities
come out or whatever, or they do something,
or artists,
or our friends.
Yeah.
Like if we're in a group of male friends, and one of our male friends comes out or whatever, it's not like we're not like super intrigued by that that experience because we're looking to like judge or shame or ostracize our male friend.
But I think some people are though, and I think you have to have if you're going to have a real conversation, you have to have a real conversation.
Absolutely. I do not deny that I can't even speak for anyone else outside of myself.
Right.
But I think that a lot of the times we characterize that whole experience as all of us are just looking to judge that one person who decided to, as opposed to looking at the side of, no, perhaps some of your friends are just like curious.
And you know what I will say I respect about you, though, is you can clearly articulate that. Most people can't really articulate that, right? And so they ask questions that are more, I would say disingenuous questions, or they don't know how to clearly ask just a real ass question. And I think oftentimes I've always had the motto, if you're brave enough to ask someone a question like that, you should be ready for the response and their questions that they may have, right? Because I think if you are, I always say big boy conversation. You want to have big boy conversation, you need to have big boy responses. You need to, it needs to be almost like a tennis match. You throw something over that net, be ready for whatever comes back. And then I also think that some things are just private to some people, right? Like I told you before, at 27, I feel much more comfortable being my true sense of self, but I think that everyone's on their personal journey of life, and they may not feel comfortable talking about sexuality or finances or just their traumas with anyone, right?
I hear you, and that's real. And so like everyone reserves the right to not answer any question that they don't feel comfortable answering. I absolutely agree with that.
You're just saying the curiosity.
I'm just saying that perhaps we could like approach, and it's not even just about sexuality. I'm talking about
conversation.
Tough conversation, race, whatever, gender.
Yeah,
but
it goes back to what I was saying before and I can only talk about my community, but I feel like black men, I would just say men in particular, struggle with dealing with emotion and struggle with communicating their thoughts in the right way from an emotional standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I agree.
Because it's almost, I wouldn't say we choose violence. I will say we tend to fight. Like that's how we handle conflict is through fighting.
Yeah, a lot of times because we don't have a facility with our words, we end up using our fists to try to commit. I agree with that sometimes, right? But I do think that generally speaking, I'm going back to general note here. It feels like when there's tough conversations, whether it be about gender, whether it be about sex, whether it be about race, we don't
finances.
Find whatever tough conversation on both parties. Sometimes though, I really believe it's the party that's actually undergoing the change, the unique, the paving their own way. They're not as receptive to the conversation because they feel
attacked.
They feel attacked.
Yeah.
When it's really just a curiosity of like newness, trying to understand. Because
that's what goes back to the whole thing we were talking about earlier of society. What does society say? What are the societal norms? And so you have a societal norm of when people come and ask questions, people automatically, if they're quote unquote in your words different, they're looking through a lens of feeling attacked. And they gotta, pop off. They gotta, push back what they're getting.
They feel like they have to be defensive.
Yeah,
because they feel like attacked. But
I'm not that. I don't feel defensive because I feel like I can have a various range of conversations with.
And that's it. I just wanted to put out there that like, just because someone's being asked a question, they're not under attack. It's not like coming from a place.
But
of
I think it's tone, right? Who's asking the question? What is their relationship with that person? What are their shared experiences?
I was talking about this the other day, that I really feel like we're trying so hard to police conversation and like make sure that we, like when we exchange, because for example, I was in an Uber like some years ago, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and my Uber driver was not from this country, and it was rather clear due to his accent, and he and I were talking about where each other were from,
right?
And it was cool. And then there was a girl in the back seat. It was an Uber pool, and there was a girl in the back seat, and so like I was looking to me trying to be very inclusive, include her in the conversation, and I was like, oh, and I said, girl in the back seat, like, where are you from? And she was like, oh, what do you mean, where am I from? I was like, well, you could actually
Be
take
from
that.
a variety of places.
I said, well, I said you could take that question.
But some people take offense to that. But you know,
well, let me get it all out.
Okay,
Let me get it all out because I want to get it all out. And so she was like, well, I don't know what you mean by that. I said, well, you could take that question one of multiple ways. You could say, where are you from? Meaning like, where were you born? Mm-hmm. Where's your family from? Or where did you live the most? Or where do you feel like influenced you the most?
Yeah, choose your path.
Or any other way. And she was like, well, I feel like you're being microaggressive, so I'm not going to answer your question. Okay.
Yes.
And so that's where I was like, whoa, I'm being microaggressive?
Right.
I couldn't understand that.
I feel like the society today is too PC. And some of my friends and I, we always have this conversation around the current state of affairs in terms of, do people have the space to say what they want to say, and can people equally receive it, right? So I agree with you in terms of, well, no, I understand what the person you were talking to in the Uber may have perceived that as being a microaggressive, but I almost look at that as being, the PC culture that we're in. I feel like we've gone away. My point. Yeah, no, I agree with you. We've gone away from having real, authentic, uncomfortable conversations. But I think it's more of a generational thing, because the generation that is coming up behind us they didn't really go out. I mean, they went outside, but they didn't really go outside, play, do sports. Like, they're being raised by their phone, by social media.
I know, that's tough.
So in terms of true human interaction, they have it. But to the level of my generation, the true millennial, the more older millennial, is a very different person than the generation 2 or 3 generation. The people born in the 2000s are today. Like, they take everything at heart. They don't really do, well, let me not say all of them. I don't want to make an overgeneralization, but I understand. I think the current environment that we're in is a very slippery slope.
And that's what I'm saying. It's that, like,
but I don't think that correlates to the conversation.
Well, I'm gonna tell you how it correlates.
That we're having.
I'm gonna tell you.
I don't personally feel like, but help me understand.
I will. In that conversation about that woman saying that I was being microaggressive by asking her where she's from, and our current conversation, it's that we're not going to get it when I ask someone who's just come out as like bisexual or gay or whatever, and I ask questions. It's not that I'm trying to be aggressive. It's like, can I be curious? I'm trying to learn, and we're never going to get communication to the place where no one gets offended. You can always find something to be offended by.
But the only thing I would say to that is, why does it matter what someone does? Like, why does your curiosity lend me to explaining who I am to you, you anyway?
And you reserve every right to say, I don't care to answer your question.
Because the flip end of that, which I don't
you deserve every right to say, I don't.
Right. Because people, like, I always say this to myself, people don't walk up to straight people like, wow.
You're straight.
You're straight.
When did why? You know? Because that's what we see all the time.
And so this is a question that I have for you. Do you think in the current environment that we're in, that we're seeing so many different things on TV that the quote-unquote normal will become a new normal?
Of course. I think the more we normalize it,
the
more normal it will become, and we will have less question.
Right.
But that's why we have question today, because it has not been our normal up until this point.
No. I think it has been a normal. I just don't think it's been broadcast from a television standpoint.
Okay, well, you're saying, well, let me clarify something. It's been present,
correct,
but it hasn't been normalized.
Yes,
okay.
I will agree with that.
Okay,
yeah.
So it's been there, but it hasn't been normalized. And I think once it becomes normalized, we will have less questions about it. So that's all it is. You
can only say from your perspective, though, because from my experience, I haven't dealt with it, but from people who I've seen deal with shit like this, that hasn't been their experience.
Like today, for example, I asked you a shit ton of questions about what it's like to be bisexual.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you that so that I can judge you later today, or even judge you in this conversation.
But again,
actually, because I'm not bisexual.
Right.
You have experienced life being a straight man.
Yes.
So you didn't ask me questions about what it's like to be straight.
Right. I didn't have an opportunity. I didn't need to, because I know.
Exactly. Oh. That's what I'm saying. Is that exactly? You don't have to ask me, well, what's your life like being straight? Because it's you lived like that. It's normal. but your experience is not normalized yet. So we're trying to learn about what your experience is like.
I want to caveat what Christian is saying, audience, by saying this is his perspective, but this is not the norm for the masses. I don't think the by and large.
You don't think so?
No, I don't. Well, let me rephrase that. My experience in what people who I have interacted with and shared with me has not been of that. No, it has not been more of a curiosity. It's been more of a judgmental.
Really?
Yeah. But again, not from my perspective.
I can see that though. I'm not so naive
people.
to think that like they're not judgmental people.
You have people who got put out their houses at 15, 16-year-old.
I can see. I absolutely see that.
Become foster kids. It's rough. For a lot, I would say for people who are older who have had to live that life. And this is people who are different in general. Though.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, I believe that, and I don't.
So you're just offering a different perspective that I had never heard. Yeah,
just want to offer a different perspective.
Yeah.
Some people
yes
ask questions because they're curious.
Correct.
And just want to learn.
And I'm just offering you a different lens of it.
Yeah.
It can be two things can be true.
At the same time.
Yeah. What did you learn from this podcast?
What I've learned, to be frank,
what
I've learned during this podcast is that I didn't give you the benefit of the doubt in undergrad that I could. Had I had questions, I didn't trust that our friendship was deep enough to the point where you trusted me if I were to come to you and have questions. I could have, instead of having speculation for years, I could have just asked you straight up.
Yeah, you just could have been direct.
I could have just been direct.
I value people I'm extremely straightforward, and I value that.
Exactly. And I think that that's extremely valuable for me, and maybe I can offer that to like any viewer or listener, is that if you have a friend, because this is not you're not the only friend of mine that I have speculation or had speculations about, and I never approached the subject.
Right.
Me thinking out of respect for them.
Right.
But
if you frame what you were saying before as a curiosity, if you approach it from that lens, I think people will respect that.
It's intentionality.
Yeah, it's all about what are your intentions.
Exactly. And at the time, I wouldn't have come to you from a place of judgment. I would come to a place of like curiosity, just wanting to know, and like letting you know that. And I think also a place of arrogance. This is what I've learned. That a part of me not coming to you in undergrad is arrogance on my part, in it that me thinking that you weren't ready to talk to people about it or talk to me about it, and that you were going to lie to me. And I missed out on however many years of a deeper relationship with you. That I hope that people out there, that if you have a friend, that you guys are friends, and there's any aspect of them, doesn't matter if it's sexuality or whatever, it doesn't have to be that, it could be anything, that you wish to know or you want to talk to them about, or something that you're feeling that you just want to express with them, trust in that relationship.
Right. If it's a real relationship, I agree. I think you should lean into those uncomfortable conversations.
And arrogance is not only I think I'm the best, I'm better,
Right.
Arrogance can show its way in a lot of different forms. And I think me not coming to you and me not asking you is still a sign, is still a form of arrogance on my part.
No, I think I agree, but I think it was also a space where you didn't know what my reaction was going to be.
Absolutely. I didn't know. I didn't want to offend you. So that's that. And so that's what I learned in this, was that you are a bigger human being than I made you out to be at the time. That you're a braver human being, you are a more honest human being, you are a more complete human being, that I ascribed to you at the time in undergrad, that honestly I could have had this conversation many years ago.
But it would have been a different conversation.
Would have been different, but I still could.
Different conversation. But you could have approached the conversation, yes.
Exactly. So
that's because I don't just wear, you either know me or you don't.
Yeah.
Right. And I would encourage people who are listening, if you have any questions or thoughts about anybody, your friends, not I won't say just from a sexuality standpoint, but just from getting to know them, or you're just curious, ask those questions, right? Because if you have a real, authentic friendship, that's how you add depth
Exactly.
the relationship. Right?
And when he
It's
says
not
depth, when he
it's
says
not-
depth, that's his country version of depth.
Right,
So,
right.
Just so you guys
So
know.
it'll be surface level.
Yeah.
Extend beyond the surface.
Extend beyond the surface.
Yeah.
And what is that? Big talk.
Big talk, yes.
We're having big talk right now.
Yeah.
You said big boy talk?
Big boy talk.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
There it is. Man, thank you for taking the deep dive.
My pleasure. It was fun, you know. I think this was very therapeutic for me. This is something that I would have probably never done 4, 5, 6 years ago.
No, you wouldn't have.
But you know for a fact.
You wouldn't have done
Yeah,
this
but I think I'm at a point in my life where I live life freely.
That is Adolphus Willis. Please follow him if you're interested in.
No.
No, okay, never mind. Don't follow him. Follow me at Commercial Christian. That's
Well, yours is open. Mine is blocked. That's what I'm saying. You have to request for me, and I don't think people are going to go through that whole thing.
They will. We're
Okay.
gonna follow Adolphus. Adolphus is
Mr. Adolphus.
Mr. Adolphus, and I know Adolphus isn't that common, so I'll spell it for you. That's Adolphus. Did I miss any letters?
No, you did
That's
not, brother.
At Mr. Mr. There's no dot, right? You can't
Nope.
do a dot. Okay, at MrAdolphus, Mr. Adolphus. Thank you guys so much for joining, and until next time, big talk with Christian Henley and Adolphus Willis.